Good morning, and thank you for joining us. The peace negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian Authority are on the brink of collapse. Nearly 9 months into the current round of the talks in the decades-long conflict, there is virtually no clause in the framework agreement both sides agree on. By next week, Israel must free its fourth tranche of 26 prisoners in order to keep the Palestinians in the talks, but Israeli ministers say there will be no prisoner release if the Palestinians do not first commit to a year-long extension of the current peace negotiations. To hear more about the recent developments from the diplomatic field, we are joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning to you. And also in studio is Channel 2 senior foreign affairs editor Nir. Good morning to you. Before we break this down, let's take a look at the following report.
Next week, at this time, Ramallah may be celebrating and welcoming freed prisoners. But as peace talks between Israelis and Palestinians reach a serious deadlock, no one will bet on it. After almost 9 months, negotiations are on the brink of collapse. So the fourth and final batch of Palestinian prisoners Israel committed to release is at risk.
This is an incredibly complicated issue. As are many issues involved in the negotiations. We're at a pivotal time.
When U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry kick-started peace talks in July, Israel agreed to release a total of 104 long-term Palestinian prisoners, all of them convicted of terror acts against Israelis. So far, 78 prisoners have been released in 3 of 4 stages. The remaining detainees were scheduled to be released on March 29. Alas, the crisis looming over the peace process complicates everything. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas returned from Washington last week after rejecting Kerry's framework agreement, as well as an American request to extend negotiations.
We refused Kerry's ideas because they are biased in favor of Israel and would mean diminishing Palestinian rights for Jerusalem and the right of return while legitimizing the settlements.
Upon returning to Ramallah, Abbas was welcomed as a hero that stood up against American pressure to make concessions. But Jerusalem is questioning the wisdom of going ahead with the prisoner release without a Palestinian commitment to continue talks.
We agreed to release terrorists while talks go on. If Abbas is now blowing up the talks, we will have to reconsider.
Netanyahu is under pressure from his ministers to cancel the release, but the Palestinian Authority has made clear that if it doesn't go forward, all talks will cease, and they could seek full recognition as a UN member state. Between the two, the U.S. is trying to come up with a creative formula that will enable the release and keep the process alive.
I said we're joined by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, let's talk about next week's, first of all. 29th of March is supposedly the release date. It's looking, though, that within even Netanyahu's coalition, there's a big push not to do that fourth tranche, right?
Yes, and the deadline is actually even closer because in order for the Palestinians to be released on the 29th, the procedures have to start at the end of this week. So, and at this point, no procedures have started, and inside Netanyahu's cabinet, there is a big pressure not to move forward. The Israeli ministers are saying, even Tzipi Livni, the chief negotiator, is saying, why should we release prisoners if at the end of this Abbas will blow up the talks? So actually, until Wednesday, Thursday, the Americans are working on crisis mode. They're trying to have marathon meetings with both sides, trying to get some kind of creative formula that will enable talks to be extended. But to say the truth, I'm not sure. Nobody seems very optimistic about it, and it's not sure that this will succeed. And this actually will mean probably a collapse of the talks. It's been 9 months. We're approaching it.
And the deadline was supposed to be April, supposedly. No framework agreement. There's nothing that has been agreed upon, is there?
Almost nothing has been agreed upon, and the distances are so wide when you hear both sides, both the Israelis and the Palestinians. There's no agreement on recognition of Jewish state. There's no agreement on borders. There's no agreement on territories. There's no agreement on Jerusalem. There's actually no agreement on anything. So what went wrong? What have they been doing for the past 9 months? This will probably be for the history books, but in Israel, many are, of course, pointing, blaming fingers at the U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry, and the way that the negotiations were conducted by his side. And probably in Ramallah, you'll probably hear several comments that are similar, blaming Kerry for the way he conducted the negotiations. You know, it's this ongoing process, I think all of the facilitators and mediators have this kind of book of mistakes they've been going through in the past 20 years.
Which they seem to be doing over and over again. Yeah, but it's speaking with the Americans, and Arad Nir is here in studio also for our next segment, just wondering, the Americans, they've signed on the attempt to try and extend this by another year. Doesn't that make them, I'm sorry to ask you the same question over and over again whenever you hear, look even weaker after the promises?
You heard Jen Psaki. It's a very complicated situation.
Yes.
You know, the situation is so complicated, and they suddenly revealed it. Yael, I've been covering this process for more than 1 decade, and allow me to remind you of this old cliche that when there's a will, there's a way. Unfortunately, in this case, there is no will on both sides. Not the Palestinians, not the Israelis. They have no will to go further. The Americans were trying. They're exhausted. They've got this the Crimea crisis over their heads, and this overwhelms everything else. And I don't think they have much more initiatives or much more things to do in this case before declaring it dead. But they won't pay the price. It's us that will pay the price. The Israelis and the Palestinians will have to bear the consequences.
Which is a terrifying thought, and Tal, to you, because there was a busy weekend. The IDF raided Jenin. Netanyahu came out actually in support of this raid, almost as if the Israelis are pushing, and I'm asking you from within, all the talks between the ministers are pushing to give excuses as to why this fourth trench is going to fail.
Well, Arad will probably be able to recall this better, but this is basically the traditional blame game has started maybe months ago, but now we're at the final stage of the blame game. The Israelis are trying to present the Palestinians as rejectionists, as a people who rejected the Kerry Framework Agreement, and the Palestinians, by their side, are trying to bring the agenda back to the settlements. But Arad talked about what would be the outcome for both sides. I think the Palestinians have some kind of horizon ahead of them. We might not like it, the international community might not like it, but they can move forward, go back to their unilateral moves and seeking recognition at the UN and international bodies. The Israelis have quite a different horizon ahead of them. I'm not sure that the Israeli public fully comprehends this, but when you're talking about all of the boycott threats and talks about BDS and sanctions against the settlements.
And appearances, it's the Israelis that are not going to look good.
And for the past 9 months, there's been a halt on all of these initiatives, or at least some kind of halt, and because of the negotiations. And if the negotiations are over, there's no guarantee that these will not be renewed and come up again into the agenda.
And you haven't mentioned violence, which is also an option that the Palestinians are considering.
But we will be following all of this here, as we said, pivotal week for the peace negotiations between Israel and Palestinians. Thank you both on this subject. Next big topic of the day, U.S. President Barak Obama is kicking off his European trip amid Russia's annexation of Crimea. During his 4-country trip, the president will be gauging how hard the European Union is willing to push back against Russia, one of its largest trading partners, as well as have to contend with European leaders who are still fuming over the NSA surveillance of key allies. To hear more about it, still in studio, senior foreign affairs editor of Channel 2, Arad Nir, and on the phone from Crimea, Russia Today, Middle East Bureau Chief Paula Slier. Paula, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
As always, thank you for being with us. Question to you, the American president landing, or is arriving in The Hague today. What is the talk, or the coverage of it actually where you're at in Crimea regarding what the agenda is for the West or the American president as he's arriving in Europe, clearly with Crimea on his mind?
Well, certainly the feeling on the ground is that the whole agenda for the American President Barack Obama's visit to Europe has had to be entirely rewritten, given what's happened on the ground here. People very much expect that he'll be putting pressure on his European allies to try and take further steps against Russia. Not that that's particularly worrying the local population. As I've said to you before, the mood on the ground is one of great support for Russia. And indeed, over the last 2 days, we've witnessed the same kind of sentiments being expressed in eastern Ukraine, where thousands of people have taken to the streets in eastern Ukrainian cities of Kharkov, Donetsk, Lugansk, and Odessa. And we're seeing the same kind of rallying call there that happened here in Crimea, with people demanding that Russia becomes the official language, that Russia potentially annexes the eastern Ukraine, that there's a referendum that's held there, people saying that it's illegal that the Kiev government has proclaimed the political part of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement and signing it. So really, there is a sense of watching what the American president is doing, but almost a foregone conclusion in terms of what are the statements he's going to make and the proposals he's going to put forward.
And statements being the key word of it. Do stay with us, Paula Arad. I'm wondering, because Obama, it is said that he's seeking to discourage any escalation by basically uniting his European allies and finding a tougher stance or line. What does that mean?
Firstly, he's trying to understand what is Europe willing to do. Obama did draw a red line in front of President Putin, one of many, as you said, and Putin crossed the red line without blinking of an eye. And apparently the Europeans were talking and declaring they had lots of idea how to retaliate Russia for what it did in Crimea, but they're not really willing to do anything because Russia is an important trade partner for them, very important, much more important than it is for the United States of America. So Obama is coming to The Hague today for the meeting, which is first of its kind since the eruption of the Crimea crisis. He will meet with many of his colleagues, the world leaders, and he will try to assess what is Europe willing to do. How far are they willing to go and to join him with this sanctioned move against Russia? I'm
wondering, isn't Europe waiting for him to do the same thing, though? Or aren't the Europeans looking to see what the American administration is willing to do? And there's talks of nuclear security, but also the Ukrainians are pushing for their army to be provided with more weapons. Is that something that may happen, or are we still just in the talking mode?
No, we are in the talking mode, and nothing will happen. The Ukrainians are trying to feed the flames. They are trying to bring in more action and more military aspects to this crisis. The Europeans are reluctant. Obama is reluctant. I'm talking for many years now on the Obama doctrine. And this is the Obama doctrine. He is setting up the red lines, but he is not willing to use force or military force in order to implement them. He is willing to use sanctions. Now, it worked nicely with cooperation with Russia. In the Iranian case, it worked nicely in the Syrian case. Now we'll see what will happen in the Crimean case, where he does not need, well, he needs Russia, but Russia is on the other side of the line, and he needs his European partners now. And as much as they are talking, even amongst themselves they are divided, because Angela Merkel of Germany, she is not willing to give up the close relationship with Russia. The Germans have got lots to lose, and they are the locomotive, the economical locomotive of the European Union, and this is why the European Union is divided within itself. The eastern countries of the Union, they are they want a harsher move against Russia, whereas the more established countries are much more reluctant because they have got lots to lose, and Obama will try to see how far can he go.
Finally, Paula, I'm wondering with you, because it does seem that there's this attempt to show the tension is growing in Crimea, but is there anything on the ground that suggests that, as you mentioned before, that there'll be more pushes to annex the east part of Ukraine? Is there something that we think will be happening in the next several days or weeks, or is this done?
It's the million-dollar question. I mean, the latest word from the Russian president is that it's not his intention to annex eastern Ukraine. But of course, it depends what evolves on the ground, whether the call for some kind of annexation increases. I mean, I can tell you here that in Crimea, the mood is one still of celebration and jubilation. There have been celebrations throughout the weekend, firework displays, particularly Friday night, and even now, walking down the streets, every so often, people start shouting, Russia, Russia, and there's still people walking around with the Russian flag flag draped over their bodies. For the first time, what I'm witnessing here in the capital city of Simferopol, where I am, is Russian soldiers in the barracks. The Crimean Prime Minister over the weekend ordered Ukrainian troops inside the barracks to lay down arms and leave. What is interesting is that less than 2,000 Ukrainian military personnel decided to leave Crimea, and this is out of a total amount of some 18,000 who currently serve inside Crimea. One of the points that we're watching is what's happening on the border. We are receiving reports that the Ukrainian government has closed its border with Crimea. There are several foreign media outlets that are reporting that thousands of Russian servicemen are on the border. We are hearing different reports from our Russian sources, so that will be something one needs to monitor. It's just the situation is calm, but whether or not it's got the potential to flare up in the coming days.
Nobody knows. Paula Slier, thank you for joining us. Rod Neer in studio as well will be following the president's trip throughout the week and all his stops later on, also arriving in Saudi Arabia. But first, when we get back, thousands of protesters from across Spain march to call for an end to austerity measures. Before anything else, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I-24 News Morning Edition, where you should be, because yes, sorry, let me clear my voice. This is the place where we say hello and good morning to one and only Anthony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you might have missed while scanning the headlines. In studio, also Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor, just because I like introducing you. Yes.
Well,
Tony, shoot.
Well, no laughing matter this. How would you like to get a text message from Hamas? Probably not. Well, Haaretz is reporting as...
I was thinking of text messages that come in the middle of the night and ask if booty calls.
There's a text message from an ex, from I don't know, the tax man. Well, over the weekend on Saturday, a lot of Israelis received very nice, very hostile text messages coming from Hamas, and also the website of Israel Defense Magazine was hacked, and some people, actually myself included, got very strange emails that were based on that hacking, and this was Hamas, the militant group governing Gaza, was up to this. Basically, they were saying that for people in Israel that threatening Israelis with Qassam rockets, kidnappings, and the like, get out of our country, that sort of thing. I think this has happened in the past.
It has
once before. Yeah. So obviously, there's some. It's not just the NSA that has easy access to phone information. And people are actually complaining in Israel about the fact that how could this happen despite firewall, this and that. Well.
I'm not going to make light of this at all. I'm just thinking maybe if the war remains only in the cyber realm. Maybe just keep it to text. But yes, no.
Sure, but of course it did shake up a lot of people, and because these were very. If this were probably in any other country, it would be taken super seriously because there's quite threatening messages. But it's a lot of shadow. Psychological, warfare, if you will. Yeah. So hopefully, Israel Defense website, which I believe is a partner of I-24 on some level, we have some cooperation with them. But I hope that they get their website back into shape.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And maybe it already is. I haven't checked. Also in militant news, now Lebanon. There's a new Palestinian militant group which is about to see the light of day up in Lebanon at the Ain al-Hilwa refugee camp, which is the largest Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon. Apparently, this website source, Now Lebanon, which I've used in the past, it's pretty credible, says that a new 500-member armed group is going to be emerging in the coming days, and its members are former militants affiliated with Fatah, and they are funded by Mohammed Dalan, who was expelled from Fatah and who Mahmoud Abbas has fingered as being complicit in the death of Yasser Arafat. Little convoluted, but...
No, I mean, listen, made sense to me, but I've lived here too long.
It's all part of the Palestinian power struggle for...
Exactly. And the fact that Dahlan actually, and you brought this to our attention last week, Abbas was coming out very strongly against Dahlan and even almost pointing fingers at him with the demise and death of Arafat. So this is all
a
interluded.
lot, like you're saying, a lot of group power
the tribes,
struggles
they
at
are
work.
triumphant at the end of the day. Yeah.
And speaking of tribes, the Jewish tribe, yet again at risk in France. The Times of Israel and other newspapers are reporting on another attack on a French Jew in Paris. The headline pretty much says it all. A Paris Jewish teacher had his nose broken, a swastika drawn on his chest. He was cursed at in Arabic. This was happening Thursday. And I want to mention...
Paris.
This is in the 19th arrondissement, or district of Paris, which is actually not the tourist heart of Paris, but it's the center of Paris, basically, not some suburb. And, it's quite, I want to say, it's shocking, but it's not the first time this has happened, and there's been an uptick in these kinds of attacks in France.
Other than condemnation for this incident, for example, anything the police or anybody were doing strong to prevent or where?
I think the suspects fled. Some passersby did help the man the teacher who was being attacked and roughed up, so that's good. But again, France is having a big issue with this.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but we had a big story on the I-24 website. 2/3 of French Jews are considering leaving France.
Yeah, in fact, I mentioned that here in studio. No, it's important to mention it. In France, of course, let's not forget World War II. Some 76,000 Jews were deported to concentration camps, and only 2,500 survived. I think France, on some level, they have a responsibility to really, crack down on this sort of abuse. They have a hard time doing it, but it's not going away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Also, Putin. Let's get back to Putin. The Hill tells us that Putin's lobbyists in Washington, D.C. are escaping sanctions. Now, we know that President Obama has targeted a lot of Putin's inner circle with sanctions.
Yes, those are the big, tough sanctions, right?
But he's got some PR firms working in Washington, D.C., Ketchum, lobby from Alston and Bird.
They're big.
Yeah,
they're big.
huge.
And so far they've dodged the sanctions, maybe not for that much longer, but, they are doing their PR thing at the moment, unscathed by the latest round of tit for tat.
Putin is being called a bully all over the world, and I have to say, and again, it's morning, and I'm big and tired, but my God, that man, what a fascinating character. Really.
Yeah, he's got his well-oiled machine,
yes, nothing
polishing
holds him
his
back.
image, even in Capitol Hill. In
the history books, I think both of you will agree with me. He's going to come down as one big macho. Is that the only way to put it? Yeah.
And the thing about I was thinking the torso bare-chested on the horse, and that made me think of Catherine the Great and her horse, and the fact that she was sort of this big conqueror. I mean, she had special relationships with lots of people, but
including Rasputin.
I love that you just compared Putin to Catherine the Great.
I think on some level
Putin and Rasputin.
Putin and Rasputin, exactly.
Wow, that's a dark road to go down. Now, imagine a dark byway in Venice. The Independent reports that Venice, our favorite city, one of them,
I'm going to go along with this.
Yeah, go along with me. Is seeking independence from Italy.
Yeah.
Yes, there was an unofficial poll.
Why?
And the Venetians and people in the Veneto region are tired of paying taxes to Rome. Who can blame them? And they feel like they're not getting a fair shake, and they want to. Actually, Venice was an independent republic for centuries until Napoleon marched in 1797 and ousted the Doge.
I'm so glad I'm surrounded by intelligent people.
We're Venetian.
Shallowly and go,
We're Venice lovers.
Yes.
So that's one tool. It's an unofficial poll, but it's going to feed that irredentist fuel in Italy, and who knows, maybe Venice.
Who they need? They need Putin.
Oh my! Strike that comment.
You want an independence called Putin? Yeah. Putin, exactly, in Italian.
Call Brigitte Bardot.
Oh my God! Wow.
She's back in the news. Yeah.
Dramatic pause.
Yes.
Whoa! Oh my God.
Yeah. Brigitte Bardot, the ever lovely Brigitte, has slammed France's Manuel Valls, Interior Minister, who recently said that anti-Semitism is the same thing as anti-Zionism. Interesting guy.
Okay.
But Brigitte Bardot is saying that he is not coming down hard enough on opponents of the corrida bullfighting, and she's mad.
I'm just looking at the picture. I'm sorry.
She's
79.
Is she 79?
Yeah.
80?
So is my mother. She looks good.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of her angry pictures.
No, she's angry, right? She's angry.
She says that Valls was so insensitive to those who oppose the bullfighting that he would throw Victor Hugo in a dungeon if he had the chance. It's kind of strong language.
It is.
But
very strong language.
Human rights activists tend to
overstate to make their case.
But we need them to be so passionate.
We always
about
need Brigitte Bardot.
Yes, we definitely do. Cherchez la femme? No?
Cherchez la femme?
Yeah.
Cherchez la femme.
Well, there she is.
You don't need to chercher her, though.
Yeah, she's right there.
Yes.
Libyan Berbers.
The
Berbers of Libya.
The Berbers of Libya are doing what? Yeah.
They're trying to reassert their rights after decades of suppression by Gaddafi. These are the Amazighs, and they have an ancient language called Tamazit. This is.
And today on Klingon.
Actually, this language. This culturally important resource, linguistically speaking, predates the cave people times. I mean, this going way back. The language is called Tamazite.
Tamazite?
Tamazight.
Wow.
Well, the people are called the Amazighs, and they live in the Yefren region of Libya.
Okay.
Which is home to the country's Berber
You're aware of the
minority.
fact this is straight out of Star Trek.
Actually, it's straight out of Wikipedia.
Well, it's straight out of the Christian Science Monitor, which does report that after decades of forced silence, the Amazighs are trying to speak their beautiful language and try to get it enshrined in the constitution of Libya that they should have this protection, like the Bretons of France.
It's beautiful, and I got to tell you, you brought the story to us, so you are going to have to find that language. I'm sorry, and your mission.
I'd love to go to Libya.
Your assignment, should you choose
day
to accept it, is actually, I want you to speak some of it.
To speak some Amazigh?
Some Amazigh, sometime throughout the week.
Yeah, they have many different words for hummus.
For hummus.
Yes. So, amongst other things.
Okay.
So that's one to watch
in
Libya.
I nearly gave birth. Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For this, and of course, you will be back in the second part of the show.
See you.
On to something completely different. Our next topic, still in the news, violence broke out in Madrid at the end of the wide-ranging anti-government protests that drew tens of thousands to the Spanish capital. At least 19 arrests were reported after protesters threw firecrackers, bottles, and stones at riot police, who responded by charging at demonstrators and firing rubber bullets. We are joined in studio by I-24 News senior news editor Ruthie Sinai. Ruthie, good morning.
Good morning again.
And before we take a look at that, let's break it down in the following report.
88 people were injured and at least 24 arrested following clashes between anti-austerity protesters and Spanish police in Madrid on Saturday. The activists threw rocks, bottles, barricades, rubbish containers, and sticks at riot police, who fired rubber bullets at the crowd. The violence occurred after the so-called dignity marches brought massive crowds to the capital in support of more than 160 different causes, including unemployment, housing, health, and education.
We have decided to say enough. We don't want to continue the way it is. We want the government to change or leave because they do so much harm that it can't last any longer.
Protesters also urged the conservative government not to pay its international debts and to tackle unemployment of 26%. The Spanish government first introduced public sector austerity in 2010 in order to lower the deficit, provoking widespread anger amongst middle and low-income families, as dozens of cases of corruption in the ruling class are investigated by judges.
All the rights that we won for so long, for which our fathers, grandfathers have fought for, they are slaughtered, trampled underfoot, one after the other.
The OECD says the economic crisis has hit Spain's poor more than in any other country in the group.
Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor, I-24 News. Spain, every time we see it in the news, it's somewhat connected to the financial crumbling situation of the country. Interestingly enough, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a place where they're still demonstrating, no?
Yeah, which is encouraging. You know, there's a headline in The Independent today apropos of the news, your previous segment, The Pain in Spain. Which, yes,
the pain is
Spain, which I think kind of sums it up. I think, what we're seeing here is pain.
Yeah, and what happened over this past weekend? Why were they all out?
Look, the demonstrations have been going on for a few years. We mustn't forget that. But these are, again, on the one hand, the government is telling people we're coming out of this, bad period. We see on the horizon and, encouraging signs of the economy and so on. And people aren't feeling it, and they're frustrated. And, I was reading some descriptions, and it's true, it's orchestrated by trade unions and left-wing parties, it's fine. But the people are coming, some people, it sounds like a pilgrimage almost. People were walking to Madrid from, various parts of Spain. I mean, this is Spain is a land of pilgrimages, so this is kind of, reminiscent of it. And people were coming to voice their pain again at all sorts of things, from lack of housing to government cuts in education and welfare and health services, to unemployment, of course, which is very, very high, something like 24%. And among young people, 43% are unemployed, which is,
Yeah, that's a depressing, devastating thing. If you're starting your life, and you think that that 50% of your generation is not getting work.
Exactly.
Now, thinking though, because the social revolution, quote unquote, occupy this, occupy that, have sort of dumbed down, but you see these people still out in the streets. This time, is this the first time it got this violent? I mean, relatively speaking.
Look, again, it is relatively speaking, and the protest itself wasn't violent. This was sort of on the sidelines of the protest. It was pretty much when it was over, and there was apparently some groups on the sidelines of the big protest who were perhaps more frustrated or I'm not sure what exactly.
Government saying and doing what in order to trust?
Government is basically saying, trust us, we've taken us this far, it's not our fault, it's the IMF, it's the International Monetary Fund, it's the World Bank, it's the European Bank. They're forcing us into these austerity measures and into these cuts and into these tax hikes. Not our fault, but, on the horizon, I mean, we're almost there, the worst is over, and people aren't seeing that the worst is over.
Well, obviously it's not happening. The thing, as we mentioned before, that's interesting, it was one of the birthplaces in Europe of the social dissent.
Sure.
And it's still going on, but
Absolutely.
maybe, at least they're still out in the streets and trying to change something.
Exactly. But, and also people, the other thing that I think is very difficult for people is to see the corruption. I mean, there are a lot of, corruption cases before the courts, and people are saying, well, if these guys up there are having fun with our money, and we can't.
And we got nothing to eat or don't know work.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that'll happen in other countries.
And poverty is
on the rise. Ruthie Sinai, thank you for being with us this morning. As always, when we get back, Sharia law set to be enshrined in the British legal system as lawyers get guidelines on drawing up documents according to Islamic rules. We'll tell you all about it. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Monday, March 24th, 2014. This is still the morning edition, where you should be. And last time I checked, I'm still Yael Levi. So, on to our next subject. Fascinating and interesting one this morning, and that is Islamic law will be effectively enshrined in UK law for the first time. Guidance on Sharia-compliant wills has been drawn up by the Law Society, meaning high street solicitors can draft documents in line with religious principles. The wills will be able to deny an equal share of inheritances to women and non-Muslims, and children born out of wedlock can be excluded completely. We are joined in studio by I-24 News correspondent in London, Jonathan Sashadati. Good morning to you. And Jonathan, great to have you in studio for this. Before we break this down, let's take a look at the following report.
Principles of the Sharia, the Islamic law, are now stepping into the British legal system. The Law Society guided UK solicitors to write Islamic wills which follow the Sharia. Those documents will be recognized by Britain's courts for the very first time in history. Such Islamic wills are likely to deny women of an equal share of inheritances, as well as deny adopted children and those who were born out of wedlock to count as heirs. The Law Society recommends some wills should even include a declaration of faith in Allah and be drafted at local mosques. While all such efforts are provided the wills will fit British law, there is still much concern the move would help establish a parallel legal system. So far, an informal network of Sharia courts is common in Muslim communities across the UK, where disputes between families are settled. However, this official recognition could spark once again a heated debate, one which cannot be settled in court. An argument over what is Britain today anyway.
As we said, joined by I-24 News London correspondent Jonathan Sacherdoti. I'm glad to have you in studio. I read this, and what's so bizarre to me is, first of all, what is the reaction in the UK to the fact that, this is monumental on a legal level, isn't it?
Well, of course, the Law Society claims that this isn't, in fact, as important as people are making out, and that all they're doing is giving advice to solicitors so that they can fulfill the wishes of some customers. But the general public in Britain is scared of creeping Sharia law getting into their day-to-day life. And so even though it's not being enshrined in British law, and it's very clear that it's not overriding British law, it is clear that the Law Society is helping solicitors to actually impose wills, which people can do what they like in their wills, but they're helping them to impose laws that come from an era that is at odds with what we do.
Patriarchal and archaic. And, when you say, to certain bits of this, of this so-called move will actually, I'm talking about, it's the rights of women, right? It's, children who are so-called illegal. Now, why does this come about? What precipitated this type of a move? I mean, I'm assuming it all goes back to money.
There is a Muslim population in the UK, and some of those people presumably have been asking solicitors to help them draft wills that are in accordance with Sharia law. And so under Sharia law, or some interpretations of Sharia law, sons are due to inherit 2/3, whereas the daughters inherit 1/3. Illegitimate children, and that term itself doesn't mean very much anymore, but illegitimate children, according to Sharia law, are not to inherit anything, and adopted children or divorcees are also not to inherit anything. And so these are being not enshrined in British law, but they're helping solicitors to assist their customers to do that. And many people are very worried that that's at odds with the British system of values and with British law, which itself enshrines equality regardless of sex, gender, sexuality, etc.
Exactly, whether you enshrine it or not, but the fact that even just allowing it, because we're talking, this is semantics of lingo, so to speak. And we had a conversation, you and I, outside the studio about where I said, so does this mean now what? That Sanhedrin law is going to now be issued? I mean, obviously that's not going to be the case. Why do this just for the Muslim population?
Well, it is the case that there is more than one bet din in the UK, and a lot of Jewish disputes can be settled in those courts, but they never override the law of the land. And in fact, Jewish law is a good example, because Jewish law states that the law of the land that you're in actually overrides Jewish law, and it is to break Jewish law if you go against the law of the land you're in. So you actually, where there's a clash, you have to obey the Jewish law. My understanding is that that isn't the case with Sharia law, because Sharia law is seen as God-given, and therefore it must be adhered to above and beyond the law of the land that you're in. And so that's the difference. So there is nothing wrong in many people's minds with the idea of religious courts being able to settle interpersonal disputes and things like that, and even sometimes divorces, where there is actually no conflict with the law of the land. Then it doesn't seem to be a problem to allow people of different faiths and cultures to also satisfy the needs of their own particular law.
True, and I'm wondering though, when this is happening, just turning it to the Muslim population in the UK, how strong is it? Because I lived there many years ago. There were many mosques around me, which is fine, all great, but this is, how powerful is the Muslim population in the UK nowadays that something like this is coming about?
Well, obviously, the Law Society say this is a response to solicitors who have obviously been requesting assistance in drafting these sorts of wills. So that must mean that there is a sizable portion of their clientele that wants to draft Sharia-compliant laws. There's also a very strong movement towards Sharia-compliant finance within the UK, so that bank accounts...
Mean what?
So there are different laws to do with lending and borrowing, to do with mortgages, and Sharia law, of course, has a different attitude towards those things. So the banks have been trying for a long time to make their own investment policies and their own lending policies compliant with those where they can. And people are, of course, also concerned about that. There's a lot of concern about these sorts of moves in the UK, whether it's the law or the finance. But of course, as you said, in terms of Sharia finance, if Britain can become a centre for Sharia-compliant finance, then it can attract a lot of money from Gulf states, from the Middle East, and that's something that's obviously in the interest of the state up to a certain level.
To a certain level, but to me, and I'm sorry, because you're being very, very calm about this, as you should, because that's That's the thing that you do. But when you say that people are concerned, is there some sort of an outcry? When this news came out, did not people in the streets of the UK, one of the places that lauds democracy and equality, just say, whoa, hello, what?
Well, it's certainly been noted. It hasn't gone unnoticed. Peter Tatchell, who is a human rights campaigner who's just become a patron of Tel Mama, which is an anti-Islamophobia charity. He's not a Muslim himself, but he works very closely with that charity. He has spoken out against this. Baroness Cox in the House of Lords has spoken out against this, and she is a long-term campaigner against what she sees as a double law system, especially where it contravenes women's rights, and she is very much against this. So there are people who are speaking out against this, and just today I read that there's an MP who has also said that he wants a parliamentary inquiry into the phenomenon of Sharia law, but so far
he wants a parliamentary inquiry into the phenomenon of Sharia law? Okay.
Well, there you go.
I know, it's doing it through the legal system.
So they don't want to make an act of parliament to ban this. That's going too far. But what they do want to do is have a full investigation into how it's affecting life in the UK and where there will be clashes and where those sorts of things need to be looked out for. And I think most people in the general population don't have a problem with different religions obeying their own law as long as it isn't in contravention of the existing laws. And when they read things about women inheriting less than men and people being disinherited because of their gender or because they're divorced or because they're adopted, then it becomes problematic. And furthermore, there is also the issue that Sharia law isn't the same thing to all Muslims. There's Sunni and Shia law, and there's different interpretations. And even in that regard, when the Law Society gets into the job of issuing guidance on Sharia law and making it work with UK law and finding ways to circumvent equality laws that exist in the UK, they might need to start issuing multiple levels of Sharia law advice for each kind of Sharia law according to different groups in the country.
First of all, thank you for, breaking it down for us. I think it's the circumvention of certain equality, what I find, holy equality, modern age laws. That's the thing that's terrifying. That was my peace of mind. Jonathan Sashadari, thank you so much for joining us today. Stay in the studio for the next interesting segment. Now, Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan launched a blistering new attack on social media this past Friday. That one, his government banned Twitter. Good luck on that one. Just days before crucial local elections. But the attempt to quell social media did not fare so well for the Turkish strongman. And to hear more about it, we are joined in studio by I24 News Tube magazine reporter Shai Ringel. Shai, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Get ready. First of all, let's take a look at the following report.
Facing elections and corruption scandals, Turkish Prime Minister Erdogan imposed over the weekend a ban on Twitter, dismissing criticism both home and abroad. Yet the Turkish public was unfazed by the ban.
If the internet is censored, it's because there are big problems. If everything is censored, then what else can he ban? People should think about this when they go to the polls on March 30th.
Turkish opposition took legal action against the ban, while the Turkish president himself tweeted that such a ban is unacceptable. The U.S. also stood by the Turks.
We have conveyed our serious concern to the Turkish government. We urge Turkish authorities to respect the freedom of the press by permitting the independent and unfettered operation of media of all kinds. And we support the people of Turkey in their calls to restore full access to the blocked technologies.
Indeed, the ban soon backfired as the Turks found many ways to overcome it.
Very quickly, the citizens of Turkey figured out ways around it, because basically the internet's kind of like Swiss cheese sometimes for the way you can access it. And even though they cut off basically the connection to Twitter, all people had to do was go into their browser, their internet settings, and change something, and they could get to it again. Or, better yet, Twitter jumped right into the fray and said, remember, Twitter started as a text messaging service. You still want to tweet? You can do it through your phone.
The message for Erdogan was simple: you can't block technology and don't test the people's fighting spirit.
Shai Ringel. Well, first of all, not only, the first day of trying to block Twitter in Turkey didn't just not succeed, it went very bad for Erdogan, right?
Yeah, we now know that 1.2 million tweets were tweeted since Friday. That means that it's quoted itself in numbers But
so wait, it was not double. It was how much?
A quarter.
Yeah,
it's 1.2 is a lot. Twitter is not that popular in Turkey. Facebook and YouTube are much more popular, and they are next. They are targeted by Erdogan. He spoke about it this weekend. He said, "This entity called Twitter, this YouTube, this Facebook, they have shaken families to their roots. I don't understand how people of good sense could defend this Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. There are all kinds of lies there."
Didn't this start also from something they went on Twitter that was mimicking Erdogan's voice?
He says it's mimicking. There are allegations against Erdogan that are posted on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Erdogan tried to remove everything from YouTube, and Google refused, and they made a public announcement saying that they're refusing to cooperate with the Turkish government. So YouTube is next for Erdogan.
I'm sure they're shaking.
Turkey, the government of Turkey, made an official request to Twitter to remove all links that are illegal in Turkey for their concern, and Twitter refused, and that's why they got the ban. The first day it was all a DNS server problem. That Turkey changed the DNS. DNS is the phone book of the internet, which means that every time I log into a site, a domain, there's a DNS server behind it that takes the letters and put it in numbers, because everything on the internet works on IP address.
I was just going to explain to Jonathan that you see that we're here so people like Shai can explain stuff that we have no knowledge about. Thank you. Exactly. I just okay. So DNS, back to the DNS.
So he blocked the DNS of Twitter, and people got around it. We could see a lot of photos from Istanbul showing graffiti of people saying, just posting to people how to circumvent the DNS.
Circumventing things. Yes.
Google intervened and put a free DNS. So all Turkish people and everyone can
just go on, whenever they want. Okay.
And Erdogan blocked that on Saturday, the DNS server. So now the Turkish people have to go on VPN and
oh my God, I remember VPN.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like 2007.
It's a very old technology. It's a very, very old technology, but now it's
back in the game.
It's in good use. And there's also a browser called Tor, which is the
I love that you're giving the guidebook for people how to circumvent this. Okay, so there's VPN, there's another browser.
Yeah.
But the point is, even within his government, Gul, within the administration, Gul came out against it. At the end of the day, though, this proves to me, and correct me, if I'm wrong, I'm sure you're going to agree, social media can't be stopped. It cannot be blocked in this day and age.
I think it can be blocked. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think you have to fight really hard in order to block it. But there are ways. We can see China, for example. They are blocking social media really well.
No, China definitely is doing it. China.
They institute a lot of laws for it to happen, and they institute a lot of technology for it to happen. It's not going to happen in one day, so we can still fight it. But the Turkish people can fight it.
And the Turkish people did a fabulous job of that. But Shai, you broke this down so well. I actually think I understood what you were saying, which is an amazing thing. Thank you for joining us on this story, and of course, Jonathan, to you as well. When we get back, something completely different. After steering controversy all over the world, someone finally likes the Hollywood mega blockbuster Noah. Yes, it's The Evangelists. We'll tell you all about it. First, though, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us, because finally, it's happening. Tony Grant is back. We promised you in the first hour of the show that he will be back, and here he is with the Rub Review and a very, very nice tie.
You like my cravat?
I like the cravat, Roni. You're in for a treat.
Okay. Now, the reason I say cravat, which is French for tie, is that it ties right into our first web story.
Wow, that was so.
Yeah, was that?
Wow.
French finesse, je ne sais quoi. Okay. Wow. TechCrunch, major website tracking tech news, tells us that Orange, which is a big French phone company, is handing over all of its call data to France's NSA.
Nice.
Yeah, which is called the DGSE in Paris.
It does sound better in French.
Yes, it's a great...
Everything sounds better in French.
Yeah,
just...
le café, l'espionnage. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
so just when you thought it was safe
they're admitting this, or this kind of came out?
Yeah, both.
Both. Are they apologizing?
Not really.
No.
No.
We're just doing this.
Yeah, so it's not just Edward Snowden anymore. It's actually it comes from a leak from Edward Snowden. Actually, I think that France is up to this stuff
that everybody's actually doing.
Yeah,
so
and really handing over basically all of their customers' call data apparently to.
Like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what for, but there you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
France.
brought to you, France. Okay.
Let's bring it back to Kim Kardashian. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now
this little loop is.
Yeah, I know.
Because everything eventually comes back
to Kim Kardashian. Now, you know she's on the cover of Vogue with Kanye West, I think, this month. And
no,
it was Anna Wintour lunched with Kanye West a couple of months back, and he was lobbying.
You exposed that.
I was right there tracking their movements.
Right.
Well, of course, now Seth Rogen and James Franco have spoofed the cover.
Perfect.
With their version of their own. More power to these guys, right? I mean,
brilliant.
God, it's brilliant.
Brilliant.
I think what I love about this is that, you know, Kanye and Kim, they take their relationship so seriously.
I
know. It's
know.
like, you know, you're just a couple.
Thank you.
A couple of clowns.
But I'm saying, like everybody else with all due respect.
Yeah.
And you know, when people do that with relationships, and I think you both will agree with me, then it's doomed. I'm sorry. I will say
you know something's going on.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. It's the showing off. I mean,
the PDA of, you know, if you need to, you know, prove it so much in public, something ain't right in the kitchen.
Yeah,
yes,
so anyway, something's not right in the Vatican shipping department.
Because you missed your parcel? Okay.
Somebody missed a big parcel. Apparently 14 cocaine-stuffed condoms were on their way to the Vatican.
No cursing in the studio, right? There's no
cursing.
From Leipzig, Germany.
Leipzig.
Leipzig.
Leipzig. My family's from Leipzig.
Well, I hope they're not in the shipping business because who knows who they were meant for. 14
cocaine-stuffed condoms intercepted on the way to Vatican City.
I call it safe shipping.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen,
you know, who knows?
I don't even know where to take this.
Now, there aren't that many people that live at the Vatican, so maybe somebody was expecting...
14 people must live there.
I mean, it was like 800 and something.
Something in that.
So fortunately, the shipment did not make it to the Vatican mailbox.
Was that, I'm assuming?
No.
Yeah. Whew. Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know if Pope's going to make a statement, probably not. That brings us to Turkish sex quiz. One of my favorite Turkish websites, haberturk.com.
I'm going to have to stop and go to the bathroom in a second. Okay, yes.
Just when they're cracking down on Twitter, you think Turkey's a repressive country. It really isn't.
No.
The leading website has 50 questions that women want to ask their man. Such as if your man is overweight.
Yes. Yes.
How do you motivate him to rekindle that romantic interest? This is just one of many questions.
That's a whole show,
That's a whole show.
That really is a whole show.
Yeah, but
No, this is perfect. And what else?
Well, there's all sorts of Turkish sex questions. A lot of these questions could apply to even if you're Armenian. They could apply.
Right? You probably could have,
Yeah, but you could just click through, and you don't even have to be a woman, but it helps.
But it,
to answer those questions.
I have to say that my list would probably be 225 questions long. But
it's good to interrogate. And,
it does. It really is. It really
get
is.
To what you want.
The Turkish sex quiz. Yes.
Miley Cyrus.
Of course. Uh-oh.
She outdid herself this time.
Yes, what did she do?
She spit on her fans.
Ooh.
Yes. No.
Maybe
Yes,
she
there's-
got part of the shipment for the Vatican. Maybe it's stopped by Miley Cyrus and then. Oh, damn.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, she was showering her audience, literally. And apparently this is part of her Bangers tour. Now, the thing is, recently, we know that her tour bus blew up outside of New
Yes,
Orleans.
that
I
was-
think she
nothing
was
was more
trying to put out the
symbolic than
fire. But a day late and $1 short.
I mean, can I say something about
Yeah,
these
go
young?
for
Is
it.
she Canadian as well now?
No, she's
no,
American.
She's American.
Yeah.
But sorry, about these young, singers or performers. Can they just sing? Seriously,
Well,
can
I
they
mean-
just
No.
sing and period? And
I mean, she can sing and she's got a great voice.
she's got an okay
It's
voice.
true.
Party in the USA.
I'm
Party in the-
horrified
I
right
can't
now.
sing.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's my voice. But anyway,
No,
so
but
she's
the fact that
rocking
you know
the
that.
headlines.
Yeah, so she spit on her audience, but to great cheers, apparently.
To great cheers, they wanted more.
They wanted.
They wanted more.
So many to say about
You know,
the
someone's
masses.
doing something right about her. I think she will end up in some sort of
Really?
institute. But
Some
whoever
sort of institute is
doing,
right.
seriously, but whoever is doing her PR is doing a good job
Fantastic
somehow.
job. Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
probably not the guy who's doing it for Justin Bieber.
No, not
No.
the same
No.
person.
Not the
Not
same
the same
person.
person. Maybe the same one for Kardashian, because if
Kardashian.
she's on Vogue,
Yeah,
then
that's possible.
she did some
Wow.
sort of a twist.
I can promise you, I will not spit on you. But yes, there's
How about
that.
a smartphone massage?
Okay, that's the new feature.
Yes, and in the Abendzeitung,
Abendzeitung.
bringing us all the news you need from Munich. They tell us about how to
Yes. Okay.
how to wind down in Munich.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways is by going to the Katzen Temple, which is a cat cafe.
I was about to say.
Yes, you can get cat therapy.
This is all the makings of a late night RTL movie. But yes.
Or you can go to the posh, I think it's the Charles hotel there, where you can get a smartphone massage.
Does that
And there's a picture there of someone holding the smartphone. I think they don't actually take the phone and massage you with it, but they massage the areas on your body which could be sore through overuse of your smartphone.
Because I was about
you know,
to
the
put this on
fingertips.
vibrate
Yeah,
and
just-
try and see
yeah.
if that works.
On special requests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no, but that's that's something that would sell nowadays.
I think
right?
that would be
Yeah.
a great seller. Yeah, you know, it's also a great seller.
What?
Martha Stewart's chickens.
Okay.
The Martha
to be a
blog.
Martha
Did you know
Stewart
that
chick-
Martha Stewart has a chicken coop on her farm?
Why does that not surprise me? Yes.
Now,
she for eggs, or did she like slaughter them herself?
well,
with her
she
bare
says that
hands?
once the chickens outlive their usefulness as layers of eggs, she serves them up as chicken fricassee.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's she's into creative reuse, and we admire that about Martha, and we love her.
I don't know. Not if you're a chicken.
Not if you're a chicken. She pictures some of the birds there on the Martha blog. She sometimes imports the birds.
Yeah, the bird has that look of help me.
I'm stuck at Martha Stewart's
yeah,
Connecticut
okay.
farm, and I don't know what to
Yes.
do with my beak.
But wow.
Yeah.
So she actually admits to, and there's been no. I'm waiting for Brigitte Bardot to storm the Martha Stewart
Can you
farm.
imagine Brigitte Bardot and Martha Stewart at a lunch? Just bring in Sarah Netanyahu with
And
fresh
it-
flowers, and
exactly.
you'll be all set
That's
for,
what we in German call Katzenfight.
Wow.
Yes.
That's good stuff.
Wow, Tony.
Good times.
As I said, I'm going to breathe deeply here, and we are going to move on to our next guest, Roni. I'm so hoping you'll be back because, yes, right? Right.
Well,
this
we've
is
talked
a
about
treat.
it. You never know.
Exactly. Roni Stav, Ynet America correspondent with the latest and the most important news of the world.
I have no news after this. I have no news. I'm just gonna quit and no news.
Bring it on.
But okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about film today.
Yes.
So, first thing, Aronofsky's new biblical drama Noah.
Very controversial biblical drama.
So apparently, the Christians are big fans. They go excited about Noah. It's like, woohoo, we love that thing. Now, they're excited about it.
So we have covered this on the show when the Muslim world went against it and said that in places like Qatar it's going to be banned because of misrepresentations of the prophet. But trust the evangelists. Why do they love it?
Well, Cook Pictures, which is a company that produces media programming for nonprofit religious organizations, released a video.
There is such a thing. things?
Yeah,
Okay.
apparently. They released a video last Friday that shows the reactions of different religious leaders while they look at the film. And they're all like super excited. They're like, oh, he's not an anthologist. This is so cute. And they're like, it's bold, it's entertaining, it's compelling. Everyone's
As religion should be.
Everyone is, of course,
Yes.
everyone's excited about it, but Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck is like, he said dangerous disinformation, but I mean, it's Glenn Beck. He's just gonna go like, no.
Glenn Beck, not that we're dissing anybody.
We're
from
not
Fox.
gonna take his,
No.
we're just not gonna take his notes on.
No, but disinformation about something that's biblical?
But Aronofsky did say that it's the least biblical film ever made.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
he did say that. So he got surprised
No,
about that too.
very. Every time I see a promo for this film, and I'm thinking, I mean, Hollywood's going through this trend now of doing all these biblical features, right? There's Noah, there's the Jesus thing, there's
everything, and it's all about like past,
Charles
events.
Manson's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
So okay, but it's
so
the
good
first...
job, leaders, for being so open for
Middle America's
changes.
Gonna love it. Amen.
Yeah.
There you
Amen
go.
for that. Amen. There you go. Another new documentary, which is, I guess, the same thing or maybe not, is
true,
in some ways, Anita, about the story of Anita Hill from 1991. She accused, for the one of us who's not sure who Anita Hill is, she accused Clarence Thomas, who was at the time U.S. Supreme Court nominee. Yeah, she accused him for sexual harassment about a decade before when she was his assistant.
And not only that, I think it's important to remind people that in 1991, sexual harassment accusations were far and few between. Nobody dared.
Yeah, they claim that she created the new term third wave feminism, talking about sexual harassment, putting it on the table. They were talking about her trial. He won. The jury, it was 50-48, but the jury were all white men. She was a woman of color. Everyone talked about this little relationship, that it's another abusive relationship of how they react to her and her accusations. But she, after all of this fiasco,
where is Anita Hill these days? Do we know?
That's it. She was quiet for 20 years. She was a professor at Brandeis, trying to keep it low-key under the radar.
Right.
But then in 2010, Clarence Thomas's wife, Virginia, sent her, left her a voicemail saying, maybe it's time you should consider an apology. Yes, that's what she did in 2010. And this is how the movie starts, actually. This is when Miss Hill was like, we need to keep on talking about it. I don't like to be in the headlines, but apparently 20 years later, everything is sort of the same. So right now she finally collaborated, because she had offers all through these years, but now she collaborated with Frida Mock, who's an Oscar-winning filmmaker, right?
A documentary maker. Yep.
And they released the movie actually on March 21st, and I think it's super important for everyone to
incredibly
go
so.
watch
And
it.
I love that we're precipitated this. I think you should consider an apology. Well, here it is, folks.
Yeah.
This is my statement.
This is where we are. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know.
No. Finally.
And we have Epos Festival, Culture and Art. Its fifth year. It's opening in Tel Aviv Museum.
What is it? I have no idea.
Basically, it's about the art in the sense of how does art changes one's life as an artist, as a human being. They have all sorts workshops, lectures from artists all around the world, exhibitions, and of course screening of different movies. We'll talk about two of them.
Is that the
we'll talk about but we'll do that in a second. There we go. The first one we're going to talk about is Viva Cupra Libra. It's a film that was a photo shoot and recorded completely hiding. No one knew about the making of this film, because it's about the most popular Cuban band called Los Andleños. I'm probably saying it wrong.
Tony and I will never know.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I tried. But they're a rap band. It's a DJ and two singers singing about everything that's wrong about this dictatorship and everything that's going on there. And they are basically risking their lives lives doing the shows, risking the lives of their families. No one is, the censorship is all over them. You can't hear them on the radio. You can buy their CDs. They're handing out their CDs, doing secretive shows in order for people to.
And sadly, in the last 30 seconds, we've got, Bjork up on meeting Edinburgh.
Yeah, exactly. We have the collaboration of Bjork and Edinburgh.
I think that says it all. I don't even know how to
Biophilia. It's a
love Edinburgh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Together at last.
The movie is called Biophilia. It's a project aiming to combine nature, music, and technology. They're talking about the way
I can say is,
reacting to visuals through music. It's Bjork.
It's Bjork, and she's not wearing a swan suit.
Yeah.
Ronnie, thank you. And, for being in studio. Always love having you here. Tony, I'm not going to say a word. That's it for us this morning. Visit us on the web or our Facebook page, I24 News. Don't forget to join us tomorrow to start your day, as you should be doing every single day, because we're watching you. Okay, that's it.